Have you ever found yourself locked in the gaze of a man wearing a wedding ring and wondered why it felt like there was something more behind his words? Behind that smile? It's a confusing place to be. You weren't looking for it. But somehow, in the quiet pauses between conversations, in the way he remembers small things about you, there's a weight, a pull, and it lingers. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about labeling someone bad or immoral. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So the real question is not why this married man is acting this way. The deeper question is, what part of him and what part of you is playing out something hidden, something unspoken, underneath the surface of polite behavior? In today's video, we're going to explore 5 subtle but powerful signs, psychological and behavioral, that a married man may be unconsciously drawn to you, not just physically, but emotionally, energetically, and yes, sometimes even spiritually. But this isn't just a gossip piece. We're going to look at this through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology, his work on the shadow on animus and emotional projection, and combine it with the clarity of Stoic thinking. Because if you can recognize when unconscious patterns are at play, you gain the power to step out of confusion and into awareness. Watch until the end, and you'll not only see what these signs are, you'll understand why they show up, what they reveal about human psychology, and how they can be a mirror to your own healing and growth. So if you're ready for a deep, honest look into the human psyche and how desire, repression, and connection often hide in plain sight, stick around. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment about which part resonated with you most, and let's begin. Number 1. He over-justifies his interactions with you. When a married man over-justifies his interactions with another woman, it's rarely just about being polite or helpful. The long-winded explanations, "I only helped because you looked like you needed it," or "I thought of you because you mentioned that author once," aren't casual. They're psychological signals. Beneath the surface, something deeper is stirring. Carl Jung called this the tension between the persona and the shadow. The persona is the mask we wear for society. It says, "I'm just being kind." But the shadow holds our hidden desires, fears, and impulses. It whispers, "There's more to this than you're admitting." When these two parts of the psyche are in conflict, we start to rationalize. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Take Matt, for example. Matt is a team leader at a tech firm. He's been married for 11 years, has 2 kids, and is known as calm and dependable. But lately, he's been showing unusual interest in a coworker, Sarah. "Sarah, thanks for those notes you sent. They were really helpful." Matt, smiling, "No problem. I mean, it's not like I went out of my way or anything. Just thought you might like them." Sarah smiles, but something feels off. The gesture wasn't just thoughtful. It felt personal, a little too personal. In Jungian psychology, this is a classic case of projection. Matt convinces himself he's just being helpful, but deep down, he's projecting his own unmet needs, the need to feel admired, valued, and even desired. His explanation isn't for Sarah's benefit. It's to convince himself he's in control. From a Stoic perspective, Matt is already letting emotion cloud his reason. As Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Matt thinks he's keeping things under control, but in trying to suppress his feelings, he's actually being controlled by them. Stoicism teaches us to examine our impulses, not justify them. The danger is in pretending that emotion isn't there. It's like driving through heavy fog without turning on your headlights, telling yourself you're fine, while heading straight into danger. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They leak through tone, timing, or overly detailed excuses. And what we refuse to face within ourselves ends up shaping our behavior from the shadows. True psychological growth doesn't come from repressing feelings. It comes from understanding them. A man who won't admit to the attraction he feels doesn't eliminate it. He just hides it under layers of excuses until even he doesn't know what's driving him anymore. The Stoics would ask, is this action guided by reason or by unexamined emotion? And the honest answer often lies in what's not said, those quiet, awkward justifications that reveal more than they conceal. You can train your body in the gym every day, but if you never train your inner life, you'll stay emotionally fragile when it matters most. The real danger isn't what you feel, it's pretending you don't feel it. In the end, what you're trying to justify isn't just the action, it's the unresolved emotion behind it. And unless you face your own shadow, it will keep pulling your strings, and you'll mistake it for fate. Number 2, he shares emotional details he doesn't share with others. A married man doesn't need to touch a woman to cross an emotional boundary. Sometimes, all it takes is a quiet moment and a subtle confession. Things at home have been hard lately. At first glance, it sounds innocent, but behind those words is something deeper, something psychological. Carl Jung would say this is a projection of the anima, the inner feminine part of the male psyche. Every man carries within him a symbolic inner woman, representing emotion, sensitivity, creativity, and vulnerability. When he represses this inner life, either out of fear, shame, or social conditioning, he begins looking for it outside himself, not because he loves the woman he's speaking to, but because she reflects the missing part of his own soul. What seems like harmless vulnerability becomes emotional outsourcing. He's not just sharing. He's transferring emotional weight onto someone else, someone who was never meant to carry it. Brian, a mid-level finance manager in his early 40s, stayed late at the office one Friday evening with his co-worker, Elena. Brian, I don't know. Some nights I lie awake and wonder if I chose the right life. You ever feel like you just performed the role people expected of you, and now you can't leave the stage? Elena pauses. I guess everyone feels like that sometimes. Brian, softly, but do they say it out loud? In that moment, Brian wasn't just venting about stress. He was revealing a wound. But more importantly, he was reaching outside his marriage for emotional recognition. This isn't friendship. It's a psychological transaction rooted in unconscious longing. From a Jungian perspective, Brian is caught between his persona, the mask he wears as husband, manager, and provider, and his self, the deeper, more authentic identity he hasn't yet reconciled with. He doesn't know what he truly wants, but he knows something's missing. Instead of confronting this emptiness, he looks for a mirror, someone who sees him in a way he no longer sees himself. This is projection. And when we project, we don't see people as they are. We see them as extensions of our unmet needs. Now, from a Stoic lens, this is emotional dependence. Brian is outsourcing the stability he should cultivate within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself." But Brian hasn't looked inward. He's tried to feel alive by leaning on someone else emotionally. In doing so, he risks creating a false sense of intimacy, one that feels deep but is built on personal confusion, not connection. It's like a man handing over a heavy backpack without warning. He thinks he's just sharing, but the other person ends up carrying the emotional burden. And if she's not careful, she'll mistake that burden for closeness. The real danger here is subtle. Emotional infidelity doesn't start with betrayal. It starts with self-abandonment. When a man begins confiding in someone outside his relationship, he's not just being open, he's trying to soothe the part of himself he hasn't faced. Imagine driving down a winding road, but instead of checking the map, you keep asking strangers where to go. That's what Brian is doing emotionally, ignoring his own compass and relying on borrowed direction. The truth is, what he really needs is not someone to understand him, but the courage to understand himself. So ask yourself, is this connection built on honesty or avoidance? Are you sharing to deepen your relationship or to escape the one you're in? In the end, this isn't about marriage or work or even love. It's about the unwillingness to face your own shadow. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You can build muscle at the gym. You can climb the corporate ladder. But if you never strengthen your emotional awareness, you'll always be at the mercy of your unexamined self. The part of you that whispers in the quiet moments, the regret, the longing, the dissatisfaction, is not a weakness. It's a signal. Ignore it, and it will show up in your relationships. Understand it, and you begin the journey toward integration. Because the emotion you're trying to share isn't just about connection. It's the echo of a self you've left behind. And if you don't turn back to find him, you'll keep searching for him in others and call it love. Number 3, he becomes hyper-aware of your presence, but avoids touch. Desire doesn't always need physical expression to be real. Sometimes it hides behind restraint, measured silence, quick glances, and subtle shifts in behavior. What we often mistake for discipline may, in fact, be emotional entanglement. Carl Jung called this libidinal energy, not just sexual, but creative, psychic energy that seeks expression. When it's suppressed due to moral or social boundaries, it doesn't disappear. It transforms. It hides, often beneath the persona, the mask we wear for the world. Daniel, a senior team lead at a marketing firm, has been married for 10 years. At office functions, he's composed, polite, and professional. But there's one thing people notice. When Claire, a younger colleague from the design department, walks in, something shifts. Daniel sits up straighter. His tone changes. He listens more attentively. He remembers small details she's mentioned in passing, yet never touches her, never flirts, never crosses a line, at least not physically. One day, while preparing slides for a presentation, Claire walks into the conference room. Claire, need help with that chart? Daniel, without looking up, already done. But, thanks. You always ask at just the right moment. Claire, smiling, that's called timing. He looks at her briefly, then glances away too quickly, almost as if the moment itself was too loud. This is a quiet storm Jung described, a conflict between persona and shadow. Daniel's persona says, "You're a married man. You're a mentor." But his shadow whispers, "You crave connection. You want to be seen." What he avoids physically, he compensates for with intense mental focus. His restraint becomes obsession. From a Jungian lens, Daniel is projecting his unmet emotional needs onto Claire. She has become the screen upon which his inner longing plays out, not because of who she is, but because of what she represents, a symbol of aliveness, attention, and feeling. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Daniel believes he is exercising discipline, but he is actually feeding his hunger by circling around it. The Stoics would see Daniel's situation as a failure of internal governance. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Daniel may not act outwardly, but his inner world is dominated by unregulated desire. He is no longer free. He is reactive, sensitive to her presence, dependent on her absence. This isn't strength. It's surrender without action. Desire that remains unacknowledged does not dissolve. It deepens. And when it has no healthy outlet, it turns inward into fantasy, distraction, and fixation. It's like sitting in a car with foggy windows. You see the road, but only barely. The emotional residue distorts your vision. You can go to the gym 5 days a week and build physical strength, but never once look inward and train emotional resilience. And that's the danger. When the mind doesn't learn to observe itself, it becomes a servant to its own impulses. Daniel's hyper-awareness of Claire isn't about her. It's about a part of himself he hasn't integrated. His shadow is no longer in the dark. It's whispering in daylight, shaping his behavior without him knowing. The insight is this: what you avoid confronting within will find a way to surface without. The craving for emotional stimulation outside commitment is often a symptom of an inner hunger, unmet needs, suppressed parts of the self, or a life unlived. So if a man keeps his distance physically but shows heightened sensitivity emotionally, he's already entangled, not with the woman, but with his own disowned self. And unless he turns inward, unless he confronts the part of him that longs, that rebels, that feels unseen, he will continue to orbit others for reflection, never realizing the mirror he needs is within. Because if you don't understand your shadow, it will run your life, and you'll call it longing, or worse, love. Number 4, he defends you in subtle but unnecessary ways. When a married man goes out of his way to defend a woman in situations that don't demand it, especially in public, it can appear noble on the surface. But underneath, there's often something more complicated at play. This isn't always about fairness or respect. It's about projection. In Jungian terms, the man isn't protecting the person in front of him. He's protecting the symbol she represents in his inner world. Carl Jung described projection as the unconscious act of assigning one's own inner qualities onto another. When a man sees a woman and unconsciously attaches traits like freedom, vitality, or deep emotional understanding to her, she becomes more than herself. She becomes an archetype. She's not just Sarah from marketing anymore. She's the anima, his inner feminine ideal, colored by unmet needs, longings, and emotional hunger. Adam is one such man. At a team meeting, when Sarah's proposal is gently challenged by their supervisor, Adam interrupts. Actually, I think Sarah's idea has merit, if we look at it from the customer's POV. He sounds calm, measured, but Sarah notices something. Adam doesn't usually speak up like this. He rarely defends anyone, not even himself. Later, in private, she asks, "Why'd you back me up like that?" He shrugs. "It just seemed right. I guess I respect the way you think." But what Adam doesn't say, what he may not even realize, is that Sarah reminds him of something he's lost. Perhaps it's passion for work, or the sense of being fully seen. Something that faded in his marriage, dulled by years of routine. And now, without knowing it, he's attaching that longing to her. From a Stoic point of view, Adam's actions are not neutral. They're colored by attachment. The Stoics teach us that virtue is the only good, and that emotions, when unchecked, distort our judgment. As Seneca warned, a man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. Adam isn't suffering yet, but he's invested emotionally. And where there's investment without clarity, there's danger. The tension between reason and emotion is subtle. Adam may believe he's being fair, even rational. But Stoicism reminds us that true rationality means checking our motives. Why do I feel the urge to defend her? Would I have done the same if it were someone else? Is this about justice, or a silent loyalty I've formed in my head? Here's where Jung and the Stoics converge. Jung would say Adam is entangled in projection. The woman he's defending is not the woman herself, but the image of possibility, freedom, or warmth that lives within his own unconscious. And by defending her, he's defending the dream. The Stoics, meanwhile, would argue that Adam has surrendered his equanimity. He's letting emotion dictate action, a departure from the Stoic ideal of inner calm and conscious choice. It's like driving through fog with dirty windows. Adam believes he sees clearly, but the lens is smeared by emotional residue he hasn't acknowledged. And that's the danger. When we're not aware of what we project, we call it instinct. But instinct without reflection often leads us astray. We live in a world that applauds kindness, but doesn't always question the motivation behind it. Support isn't always love, but love, or longing, often hide behind unnecessary support. Adam's inner dialogue, his longing, his confusion, his loyalty, are all signals from the shadow. As Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The insight is this: what you rush to protect in another may be what you've neglected in yourself. And unless you face it, you won't know whether you're being noble or just trying to fill a silent void. If you don't confront your shadow, it will find its way out through subtle actions, quiet attachments, and irrational loyalty. And when that happens, you'll mistake emotional bias for moral clarity and call it fate. Number 5, he mirrors your energy and values in subtle ways. When a married man begins mirroring a woman's energy and values, it often goes unnoticed at first. It might start with a book he casually mentions, something she recommended, or a phrase he repeats that she's known for using. This is a manipulation. It's unconscious. and it reveals something deeper. His psyche is reaching for what it lacks. Carl Jung called this the individuation process, the soul's silent effort to become whole. In that effort, a person doesn't just learn from others, they absorb what they're missing, and often they don't know they're doing it. Take Tom, a dependable middle-aged engineer married for over a decade. Recently, he's been journaling more, practicing mindfulness, even changing his morning routine. His wife, Laura, asked over dinner, "When did you start listening to meditation podcasts?" Tom hesitated. Jenny at work recommended one. "I just liked the way she talked about being present." Laura didn't press, but something felt different. Jenny isn't the problem. The real issue is that Tom sees in her reflection of who he wishes he could be. Present, grounded, emotionally aware. He's not trying to become her. He's trying to reclaim something he abandoned years ago. This is projection in Jungian terms. Jenny is not just a colleague. She becomes a mirror, not of who Tom is, but of who he wants to become. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Tom isn't trying to impress Jenny. He's responding to the version of himself she awakens. But there's a danger. Mirroring can feel like connection, but it's not always rooted in reality. If Tom doesn't recognize that his draw toward Jenny is really a yearning to evolve, he risks confusing growth with infatuation. He projects purpose onto her instead of pursuing it within himself. From a Stoic perspective, Tom's emotional drift reveals a subtle failure of self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius cautioned, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." But Tom has reversed that. He's lenient with his wandering thoughts and strict with the outer world, hoping it delivers him meaning. Stoicism teaches, what matters isn't the person who inspires you. It's what you choose to do with that inspiration. This isn't about denying emotion. It's about guiding it. As Epictetus said, you become what you give your attention to. And Tom's attention isn't just on Jenny. It's on the part of the soul that Jenny makes visible. Imagine trying to drive with your windshield covered in the dust of your unlived dreams. That's what many men do. Instead of cleaning the glass, they follow someone who seems to see the road more clearly. But that journey must be their own. The mirror never lies, but it never promises fulfillment either. A person drawn to you isn't always drawn to you. They're drawn to what you reflect. Authenticity, creativity, inner peace. If they don't pause to ask why, they'll keep chasing reflections instead of becoming the source. The real danger isn't that Tom changes. It's that he changes without understanding why. And here lies the invitation to confront your shadow, not chase someone else's light. Because if you don't understand your own unconscious needs, they'll hijack your path and you'll call it fate. So let's bring everything back into focus. Today's message isn't just about attraction or one married man or the subtle mirroring of values. It's about awareness. The kind that Carl Jung pointed to when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The people who stir something in us, whether confusion, longing, or clarity, aren't accidents. They are mirrors, showing us our unmet needs, our disowned potential, and sometimes our deepest wounds. From a Stoic lens, we're reminded of what truly matters. Not what others do, but how we choose to respond. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength. In other words, you may not control who enters your life or who desires you, but you do control the story you tell yourself about it. So ask yourself today, are you reacting from old patterns or responding with new clarity? Are you living from your values or from someone else's projections? Your healing starts the moment you stop chasing fantasy and begin honoring truth. Whether you're dealing with emotional confusion, boundary challenges, or inner conflict, remember this. The work isn't to change the other person. It's to meet yourself fully. If this message spoke to you, share it with a friend who might be navigating similar emotions. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Try applying these reflections in your everyday life. One decision, one boundary, one breath at a time. And if you're ready to dive deeper into self-awareness and Stoic wisdom, don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Way of Life for more grounded, honest conversations. Thank you for watching. And until next time, choose truth, choose growth, and always stay grounded.